you. Programmes such as Blue Planet have really shone a spotlight on the issue of pollution and pollution in our oceans, marine litter, plastic pollution in particular. Can I ask, firstly, Professor Mills, what forms of pollution are most prevalent in the oceans, and what impact are they having?
So I know you covered this in the previous session quite thoroughly, so I'll probably say some of the same things again. So plastics are really important, and I think Blue Planet has done a fantastic job of sort of showing the world how important plastics, and then microplastics, which are the unseen end product once it's been broken down to these tiny particles. But alongside those pollutants that we can see are the really important dissolved chemicals that either stick to the surface of the plastics and they're transported with them, and then desorb or come off the surfaces when the conditions change and then get into the food chain. So I think Professor Boyd made this point very, very well, that it's the unseen chemicals that change all the time, that are regulated they're regulated once we know they have an impact, but they're constantly changing and constantly coming on stream. That is probably the biggest unknown in the system. We don't know how important they are, but we worry that they are going to be important. Then we've talked about marine noise, we've talked about something that I'll use the word eutrophication, but putting nutrients into the ocean, stimulating plankton growth, changing the biochemistry of the ocean. So our nutrient runoff impacts the ecosystems. We have toxic viruses and microbes that get into the ocean that have horrible effects on our fisheries and on our aquaculture. So norovirus and other unpleasant microbes are important. And I think I've got them all. Heavy metals was the other one that Professor Boyd mentioned, that again are very important. But I think the one that trumps them all is the carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is the pollution that is increasing, is set to increase, that is not going to decrease and is going to acidify our oceans. We know that. And it's the interaction between that acidification and the other pollutants that is very much an unknown. So what happens to plastic in a more acid ocean? What happens to those toxic microbes in a more acid ocean? What happens to heavy metals in a more acid ocean? We really don't know. So it's the interplay between these different pollutants that actually is going to be key for understanding, to be able to answer your question properly.
Okay, that's interesting. So do you think there's a risk, though, here with a heightened awareness on plastics, for example, and media coverage, that we overly focus efforts on one form of pollution over another?
Well, I think it's our job to remind people there are other things going on, and those messages are complicated, as you've just seen. Yeah. So the plastic stuff is great because people can see it, they can do something individually and be accountable and proud of their 2-minute beach clean. So that's really, really important. So I think I'm a fan of using something that gets the public attention and getting the message out there. And then our job as politicians and scientists and educators is to say that actually it's more than just that. And actually, if you can take that individual accountability around plastic and then take it to the next step in terms of everything that ends up in landfill, that ends up in the waterways, that ends up in the ocean. You can take it to sustainability of fish that you choose to eat in the supermarket, in the restaurants. So you can take that philosophy and, if you like, roll it out across all of the other elements. But that is a more complicated message to get across.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, you can focus on just plastics, but I suppose it's in terms of littered beach cleanup, and that's we see a lot of single-use plastics being washed up, but packaging as well from producers and the type of packaging that is used. Yeah. I mean, for example, governments, the Welsh government in 2011 and more recently the UK government taken action on reduction in plastic bag use, the 5p carrier bag, to reduce all of that. But really, how far do those kind of solutions go in tackling the real problems?
So they're part of the solution, and certainly I think it's been really impressive. The 5p tax led to 86% reduction in plastic bag usage. We need to go further. Other countries have gone further. Other countries have either banned plastic bags completely or at least have a more significant tax. So I think we can go further with that. I think the plastic straws, the single-use plastic, it all adds up. But when I did a beach clean this last weekend, and most of the debris I found near Southampton was fishing debris. It's lines, it's fishing line, it's stuff from the fishing industry on the south coast of England. It's very different in Scotland. You referred, I think, to the Scotland drone footage of the plastic waste on the beaches in Scotland. So it's a different story in different parts of the UK, and we've all seen the images coming in from other countries that are, again, very, very different. So one size won't fit all, but it's part of the solution, certainly. Dealing with single-use plastics, straws and plastic bags will certainly be part of the solution.
Would you say that extended producer responsibility then would play a part?
Would I say what?
Extended producer responsibility, so the producer's taking more responsibility.
Absolutely. So I think we need two things. One is some innovation. We've got some great chemical engineers in this country, material scientists. We need to produce plastics that are more readily recyclable. We need to be pushing innovation in that direction so that actually the next generation of plastics we're using actually much easier to handle, to separate and to process. We're really stuck there. We need innovation in our recycling industry. We need innovation in our landfill management so it doesn't spill over during storm seasons. There's innovation required all the way through that sort of chain of between land and ocean, and that will really help us solve this problem.